You know what I've been thinking about a lot lately? Bubbles. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, and we inspire. And boy, have bubbles really come into the forefront in our society? You bet. Starting with, for one thing, the NBA, but I'm watching the playoffs and these players are living in a bubble, but my point is bubbles have actually taken over our society and our mindset. So let's review a little bit about bubbles, and are there good bubbles and bad bubbles? I say there are. Let's start with the good bubbles. First of all, I want to give a shout out to a gentleman named Ayodiji Awosika, Awosika, who wrote an article, How to Cure Your Addiction to Your Comfort Zone. I'm not really using the article per se. I'm going to quote him a little bit, but he got me thinking on the concept of bubbles. And this is what he says. For the most part, our lives are pretty comfortable. We hate the fact that we're still unhappy anyway, but we don't have the mental toughness to push through discomfort, so we complain more. We're a society full of latte-sipping yuppies who complain about geopolitics from our smartphones that child workers built. We don't move our bodies. We don't challenge our minds. We've created a cage built from our own comfort. How about the bubble boy? If you live in a hermetically sealed bubble your entire life, you die the minute you went outside because you've built no immunities. In what ways have you built a bubble for your life? And that's what inspired me to talk today about bubbles, because one of the secrets is getting into the right bubble and staying out of the right bubble. So let's talk about a little bit of each. Now, first of all, as far as this pandemic is concerned, I for one have certainly been living in a bubble. I'm in the group that is the most vulnerable, being someone that is highly seasoned in age. But my point is, I've tried to stay away from all of the different things where I could potentially catch this virus. It's not something I want to catch. I mean, when you're younger, chances are of it being fatal are, not so good, so it's a little easier. But when you get to be, my age and they're talking about this pandemic, it is something to worry about if you're in the high vulnerable group, which I certainly am. So I've minimized my activities to essentially the grocery store, where I wear my spacesuit, which essentially is the mask, and I've limited to going to the beach real early in the morning, although the weather has changed, so my beach days are pretty much over. But the point is, I've given a lot of thought to things that I don't want to do, because being in this bubble protects me from catching the virus. And keep that in mind. Being in a bubble protects you from catching the virus. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, if you stay in the bubble, if you're the bubble boy and you get out of the bubble because you haven't built up any serious immunity to anything, you're going to catch a disease and boom, it's going to be over for you just like that. Life is like that as well, isn't it? Most of us create a cage around ourselves, a protective bubble of things that we will do and stay in our comfort zones. And if we do, and once we get into a position where we're out of that bubble, then there tends to be some panic. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that if you want to survive in a world without the bubble, you have to be willing to do some uncomfortable things. And when you do uncomfortable things, you start to build up an immunity, a tolerance. This is what most people lack that are chronic procrastinators. They don't have the tolerance, they haven't built up the immunity to something not going right. And people that are outside the bubble, that are willing to take risks, no risk it, no biscuit, as they say in football, then what happens is when you do go outside, you can't handle it, you're in a panic mindset mode. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to prepare yourself for life outside the bubble. Does that make sense? And you can do that in so many different ways. Just do some things that make you feel uncomfortable. Brushing your teeth with your offhand, as an example. Having dinner, having breakfast for dinner. All sorts of different little things that you can do. Tying your shoes, putting on a sock and a shoe and a sock and a shoe instead of a sock and a sock and a shoe and a shoe. All right, I mean, there's so many little things that we do during the day that we just do them by rote, by habit, because we've always done them that way. We don't think about it. Think about your system. Think about the things that you do and change it up a little bit. Get out of that little bubble that you're in. Now that's on the one hand. On the other hand, in a real life-threatening situation like we find ourselves with this pandemic, it's kind of essential to keep in mind that there is safety in the bubble. But, you know, given a normal time frame, we're not usually living like that. So my point is, it's much better to have the mindset of getting out of the bubble than staying in the bubble. Up to a certain point. And here's the certain point. We've talked about how successful people, when you look at the percentages, are 19 to 1. 19 unsuccessful, 1% successful. 5%ers. That's what we talk about all the time. Those 5%ers put themselves in a bubble. They put themselves in the bubble where they have singleness of purpose and they have eliminated all of the outside distractions to achieve their goal. Now first, once you're inside the bubble, you must have a definite purpose. And when you have that definite purpose and you put that bubble around you and you have singleness of purpose, you keep all of the naysayers out of your life, all of the negativity out of your life, and it allows you to move forward. Now, in theory, that's terrific, but we actually live our lives and you can't help but run into negative people. I mean, that's just, once again, the odds are 19 to 1 that the person you're going to run into is going to be, you know, of that negative genre. So what do you have to do? You have to put yourself in a position where you minimize that type of activity. One of the things that's a good idea, just give you a couple off the top of my head. Get up early in the morning. Most people don't get up early in the morning. When you get up early in the morning, you will have alone time. You won't have other people around. So the bubble that you put up will be very, very firm. There will be no distractions. Set aside certain times when you are at your best to perform the functions that you need to perform and isolate yourself during those times. Some people, this is not me, but this is a large number of people, function best late at night. Okay, schedule some time late at night to do the things that you need to do. Or if you're like me, schedule it early in the morning. Sometimes you have to schedule it during the day. So in addition to the time, you also have to be aware of the location. And as they say in real estate, location, location, location is a key element to you staying inside your singleness of purpose bubble. So two types of things I want to go over with you, why I've been thinking about the bubble so much. Is obviously because I've been watching the basketball, but I just keep hearing the bubble. And everybody's in a certain bubble. I mean, there's let's talk about the political bubble, where you have somebody saying, hey, you know what, this virus is just going to go away. Or, you know, as far as global warming is concerned, you know, hey, stick around, it'll get cooler. That person's in a bubble. And that bubble is telling them, oh, there's nothing wrong, everything's going to be okay if we keep doing the same thing. That's a negative bubble. You follow what I'm saying? So you want to keep your mind open so that you can examine all of the different possibilities, but once you get into that singleness of purpose bubble, you want to stay there. And you want to get out of the typical bubble because you want to build up your immune system, you want to build up your capability to accept life's quote-unquote temporary failures so that you could advance to the next starting line. So keeping in mind, talking about bubbles, it's good to be in the bubble of protection when your life is threatened. It's good to be in the bubble when you have singleness of purpose. It's not good to be in the bubble when you have a single particular frame of reference that minimizes you viewing other different options. Does that make sense? And because we will never end a meeting on a philosophical note, let's get out there and charge! I'm Eli's dad.